Have you ever asked yourself, why is it so hard to love people? The Bible's answer is that we are all sinners. We're all flawed. We hurt each other. That's why it's so difficult to love each other. When it comes to marriage, it can be incredibly difficult to love each other, can't it? The truth is, we always marry the wrong person. When we date, we always put our best foot forward. We don't really know the person we married. And if by chance we do marry the right person, that changes quickly, because marriage changes all of us. Why is it so hard to love each other? In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21, the Apostle Paul writes, "Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ." That's a dirty word in our culture, isn't it? Submit. It has in it the idea of subservience. It has in it the idea of being low life, of being a doormat. Nothing could be further from the truth. To submit to someone means to yield in love to another. And so just before he talks about marriage, Paul writes, "Submit to one another." In other words, yield to one another in love. Then he goes on and calls husbands to love their wives as Christ loved the church and gave his life for her. Do you want a good marriage? Then love your spouse the same way Christ has loved you. Sacrifice for your spouse the same way Jesus Christ has sacrificed for you. When you understand the cross of Christ, when you put your faith in him, he strengthens you so that you can be free to live a life of sacrifice. Often I hear people say something to the effect, marriage is oppressive, because Paul says submit to one another, and he goes on and writes, "Wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church." Well, what type of head was Christ of the church? Before he went to his crucifixion, he huddled with his disciples, took off his outer garments, put a towel around his waist, and washed his disciples' feet. Jesus Christ was the quintessential servant leader. He did not lord it over anybody. When Jesus told his disciples that he was going to the cross, that he was going to die, instead of seeking to comfort him, James and John come up to him and say, "Hey, when you come into your kingdom, when you come into your real power and glory, could one of us sit on your right and the other on your left?" They were so self-absorbed it was scary. And that is why it is so hard to love. Because love is the opposite of self-absorption. To love is to give. To love is to sacrifice. To love is to give your attention to someone else. To love is to watch another person keenly enough so that you know what they need and you can begin to meet their needs. And that's hard. That's hard living in a culture of narcissism. Our culture is breathing down our necks. What's in it for you? What's in it for you? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? I deserve a break. I deserve to have my needs met. And when that is the consistent mantra in a friendship or a marriage, it leads to a breakup. It leads to an incredibly superficial marriage or friendship. Marriage and friendship work to the degree that our love for each other approximates the love of Christ, which is a sacrificial love. In your marriage, in your friendships, on a day-by-day basis, there are three possibilities. You can serve someone with a chip on your shoulder. You can serve someone joyfully. Or you can simply be totally self-absorbed. Each day you and I have to decide, am I going to serve with a chip on my shoulder, resenting it? Am I going to serve joyfully? Or am I going to be so self-absorbed that I don't serve at all? The quality of your friendship, the quality of your marriage will be determined by how closely you can approximate the sacrificial love of Christ and thereby joyfully serve the other. What's the problem with self-absorption? What's the problem with self-centeredness? What's the problem with selfishness and narcissism? Well, it's rather simple. It makes us irritable. It makes us impatient. There's a lack of graciousness and kindness in the way we speak to each other. And we get downright jealous and envious. Because we're always focused on, why does that person have more than I do? I'm jealous of what they have. You see, Jesus Christ wants to cut us out of the straitjacket of self-centeredness. And how does he do that? By humbling himself. He's God. He humbles himself and becomes a human being. He lives a sinless life, and then he bleeds and dies on a cross for you and for me. And then Jesus says, follow me. Put your faith in me. Trust in me. And then when you live in the security of his love, when you put your faith in him and allow Christ to be the foundation of your life, he gives you the strength. He frees you to live a life not of self-absorption, but of sacrificial service. And that, friends, makes life go round and round. That makes for an excellent friendship, for a tremendous marriage. God bless you as you put your faith in Christ, as you respect him and love him and worship him and adore him and learn to trust him more and more. And then as you reach out to give your attention to others, not to be self-absorbed, not to serve with a chip on your shoulder, but actually to learn to give your life to others in serving them with delight. That is by far the most exciting, the most delightful, the most fulfilling life possible. God bless you as you trust in Jesus Christ and follow him.